But I have another question that's going to kind of change gears, okay? This is
Sure.
not something I don't normally ask questions like this, but I thought I would try it out because I thought it might be fun, possibly funny. We'll see. Um, so obviously you have to work with a lot of Creative Cloud programs, at least I assume, unless you somehow managed to do everything
Yeah.
without them. Um, I'm curious if you could give me a ranking of the best to worst Adobe Creative Cloud programs. You don't have to do all of them if you don't want to, but I'm
Okay.
just curious, like where you would rank. If we imagined like a tier list, you could do it that way or something. You don't have to go super in depth. You don't have to go super shallow. I'm just
That's
very
okay.
curious. Okay.
That's all right. Well, where to start? So, for the most part, I work with Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, After Effects, sometimes Premiere, and
Right.
yeah, I'm not really going to count Media Encoder. Yeah, because that's just literally like that's like rating a screwdriver. It's like this doesn't really
Sure.
make sense
Sure.
to me. But yeah, I'll just rate those then. Oh yeah, and Audition. So my absolute favorite software to work with is has to be Illustrator. I absolutely love the idea of rather than drawing lines, you're more working with shapes. So it's
Sure.
it's a little bit. It's not like claymation, not like ZBrush style, but it is more. Um, yeah, if it makes any sense, like you keep drawing circles and you kind of make a weird shape, or you make a star and a square, and you kind of just build off of from there. And it's so interesting to see how what people can achieve with that, because
Right.
when you work with vector files, you are incredibly limited to some of the effects, and that's sometimes very hard to explain to clients and people that want vector logo specifically. That
Sure.
this effect looks great, but I can't put that in vector because it is just the way how these workflows work. So
Sure.
when you see someone make something and you're just like, oh, that's made in vector, by the way, that's like, how did you do that? How did you achieve that? Like looking
Sure.
at those gradients, that's crazy. So
Right.
when I did the vector projects with the logos, I did like a massive project where I traced over loads and loads of like Super Nintendo logos and Nintendo 64 logos because of I wanted to do game preservation. So
Right.
I've worked thousands of hours in Illustrator by now. So yeah, I love working with that one.
Sure.
I'd say immediately after comes Photoshop. I really
Sure.
like working with that one as well. I wish that Illustrator had a recovery mode sooner because I've lost a lot of hours as well.
Ah.
Um, yeah, and those I think I've lost probably 2 weeks of my life or something by now, but just
And are
not pressing was it Control S soon
right.
enough.
Are you
Um,
comfortable between switching the two? Like, I mean, obviously you are, but like, do you still find like annoyances and differences in keybinds and stuff, or have you pretty much
there's
ignored it
this
at this point?
there's this flipping thing with Photoshop where making putting strokes around something makes the edges rounded on the sides, whereas it's kind of hard to explain, but like yeah, I think yeah I can't really grab this shape, but um when you look at this shape, for instance, like they have like these rounded edges around them
Sure.
rather than it's fully straight on it, and Photoshop always does that for some reason. And if you
Right.
want to kind of avoid that, you have to create a shape and then grab the stroke function in that, put it on the
Interesting.
inside. It's some of these functions that are so like simple and obvious
Right.
require like a different workflow sometimes, and I don't like that. But
Yeah.
luckily, lots of people struggle with the same kind of issues, and
Sure.
you can find a lot of things online on it.
Yeah.
I'd say
Uh,
after that, I would say After Effects. I love After Effects. It is
okay.
like the ultimate goal when it comes to design because it is massive. I think you could put decades of effort in that, and you'd still not have
Sure.
fully explored the possibilities in it. And then Premiere, because Premiere is just a beast. Like
Yeah.
it keeps going. It works fast. It is reliable for the most part. I think my partner will disagree with that though, because she works with videos every single hour of the day.
Yes. It's
So
very reliable except for when it's not. That's how
yeah,
I like to describe
yeah.
it.
For the uses that I had with it, because my videos that I've made in Premiere have never exceeded 10 minutes. So maybe
Sure.
I just were very lucky with it, but I can imagine that For some people, it's more than that, and then probably Audition, but that's more because I'm not really into like that much doing with audio. But I do really enjoy software like Ableton when it comes to like live streaming. Because you can do a lot of like, weird funky voices.
Right. Well, and all these programs, they are like master programs. You can kind of master your craft in all of them, right? But if you're comparing them, like, which one do you think functionality wise you struggle the most with? Because I know like After Effects is something that it feels like another language to me when I'm used to working with Premiere, and then I go to After Effects, the entire layout and timeline, everything works so differently to where it's like functionality wise, it gets me all frustrated and whatnot. Or InDesign, that's another thing where it's just InDesign doesn't transfer so well from like Photoshop or Illustrator because there's so many different kind of functions. Is there one that just still like functionally bothers you?
Oof. Yeah, now that I completely forgot about InDesign, that? Because obviously I work with YouTubers so much that InDesign is not that relevant to me.
Sure.
But you can make some really, really cool presentations with InDesign.
Right.
I was really surprised about that back in 2014.
But you can also make really cool things with all the other programs too. So if you're comparing them to each other, I have a hard time giving InDesign too much credit just in that front. I mean, obviously by itself, it's a great program, but functionally, it doesn't translate to me very well. But
I feel that InDesign is just very, it's not really cumbersome, but it just requires so many clicks to get the things that you want. Yeah. It's like holding a fragile box, and you have to carefully put it down, carefully pick it up, make sure that everything is like all right, well placed in the box and stuff. And it's so much management. It's
like a simulator game where you have to, like one of those gag simulator games where you have to press an input for every finger or whatnot. That's what it feels like. Yeah.
Yeah. I was more thinking of like SimCity for some reason, but yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Hey there. You just watched a clip from my creative podcast. If you'd like to check out the full episode as well as other episodes as soon as they come out, you can support me over on Patreon for the $3 tier, or you can just subscribe here and wait for clips and podcast episodes to come out eventually.